Now we get to work outside, and I want you to apply what you've learned to a real life situation, not just something I've set up or made you do, something that exists outside of this classroom in the real world. So we are looking at some organic shapes, and organic shapes, another word for them as free form shapes. Basically, what we're doing is looking at trees. And I want you to focus on an area of the tree that you're drawing, although you could draw the whole thing in its complexity. You're working large on a big sheet of paper. This paper is about 20 by 24, and you could work either vertical or horizontal. Either of those orientations work. And you're doing this first with a light pencil. When you set up, you do need to be set up in an area where it can see everybody. So don't just go off campus just because I say that we can go outside. I like to stick to that kind of quad, that grassy area right outside of our classroom. There's quite a few trees. You could also step back, and instead of zooming in on a tree, you could draw like 3 trees in a row. There's a really nice perspective that happens when there's a tree that's closer to you, and the closer to you tree looks bigger, and then they get kind of progressively skinnier and shorter as they go back in space, even though probably you know that side by side they'd be pretty similar in height. So anyway, you have some trees there, and there's some flex. You could also look at the negative shapes caused by the buildings, but again, this is more about getting an organic shape rather than just man-made. Organic shapes in general tend to be more forgiving, so if you make an oopsie on there, it's a lot more forgiving than a building, where if you make a mistake on a building, it's a man-made structure, and everyone's going to know it. So anyway, I want you to be successful, so let's focus on the trees. There's also, like, you could do some bushes, or there's some crepe myrtles that are shorter trees over to the side there that would work as well. I do recommend that wherever you sit, you sit in the shade. You're going to have to use your board and kind of prop it against something, your knees, your lap, whatever. So we may be drawing looking down, and that's okay for this exercise. I have a stand-up easel, and that's what I'm working on. And I'm doing that shifty thing that you've seen me do, shifting from looking beyond my board to the object, then shifting to my paper. And that's this little dance that I do all the time, where I shift back and forth just so that I can visually document better. A lot of people can't hold the image in their head for longer than a few seconds, myself included. That's why I do so much looking, because I can't remember it exactly. It's gone after like 10 seconds. So that's why I shift back and forth to record it again in my mind, and then I process that onto my paper. So I am using the continuous line that we were practicing in class. The continuous line really helps me when I draw trees. It lets me be more accurate, and I don't get lost as much. So again, the continuous line is when you follow the edge of an object, and you do it in time with your pencil. So your pencil and eye kind of work simultaneously. It's a trip, and it takes a while to get. And some people who love to do that hatching, where you kind of lift your paper on the surface, it'll be harder for you, but that's okay. You should still try it. It's still okay to lift up off the paper. It's still okay to erase out when needed. And for me, what I was working on here was just getting the branches. If I have time, like if you have time, go back in and put in some of the leaves. When you do leaves, you're generalizing leaves, by the way. You're not drawing a whole bunch of single dots or drawing or shading it in. You're not doing that. You're just getting the outer edge of the leaf, and you're kind of grouping them as a clump or a mass, not individual. That's too much work. So that's if you have time. I'm basically getting the structure first, and then I'm going to put stuff on it. You could work on these for 8 hours straight before you got every little detail in. It would be a lot of time. We are going to go in and fill in the negative space. But for the first class period, I'd like you to just focus on outlining only and try and see if you can get as much detail as you can. Really push yourself. If you can't, that's okay too. But those of you who have art experience, I'd expect that from you. Look for stuff. Get the leaves in there. Get the edge of the building in. Get some more information. And again, just like with the other assignment, we are working on looking at the open space more than on the object itself. So I don't want you to try drawing the tree. I want you to draw the open space around the tree, the open air. And there's Josie Bear coming to say hi.